Hello, and welcome to the Straight to the Source podcast. I'm Tawnya Bahr.
And I'm Lucy Allen, and we're looking forward to taking you straight to the source of the people driving our food and hospitality industry forward.
For this episode, we head straight to the heart of South Australia's Riverland to visit award-winning producer Sue Heward of Singing Magpie Produce and her father Frank on their family's orchard. Recorded in the packing room and making his podcast debut, Frank has a lifetime of stories, from supplying Maggie Beer more than 2 decades ago to the joys and challenges and changing realities of farming figs, quince, pecans, and wine grapes. We are grateful he could hop off his newly restored John Deere tractor and join us for this candid conversation. Together, Sue and Frank offer a fascinating glimpse into how generational farming and artisanal value-adding can work hand in hand. At the heart of it, it's a deep connection to the Riverland, one that has shaped their family for more than a century. In fact, how long?
105 years this year, in terms of the property. I mean, the plantings came a bit later, but you would have started with grapes. Would it have been grapes?
Yeah.
And that original quince tree?
The original quince trees, my grandfather over in Melbourne had quinces, and he got a few off him and liked them.
So Dad we worked out, I'm actually 5th generation, but not here. So Dad's mum, my grandmother, and her family owned petty orchards in Melbourne. So there's quite a foundation when it comes to growing.
Petty orchards are well known around Doncaster, Mitcham area in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, have you expanded the orchard? Or have you added extra crops?
Well, what happened, the original quince trees were taken out, and then when grapes, I got rid of the other place, my brother took that over, and I had to plant something. So I thought, quinces were always nice, we'll try them. And at the same time, we put a few pecans in.
But that was probably about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the crops on the property. You've got pecans, quince, 2 types of figs.
Yes.
What are they? They're the black Genoa?
Black Genoa and some white Smyrna, the same as the quince. They're both
So
Smyrna.
the quince is a Smyrna as well, yeah.
And grapes.
And grapes. And in the past, we've grown mushrooms.
Yeah,
Oh.
lots of different things. So
Okay.
mushrooms in tunnels under the ground, tomatoes. Hewards always grow tomatoes, but this was commercial. And what are those other things on the road? Well, it'll come to us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about grapes. I mean, Riverland obviously is known for its grapes and its wine. And yesterday you were serving up the most beautiful dried Shiraz grapes, and I was munching away on them. How many grapes do you have now, and what are you doing?
I have very little. I've
Yeah.
got about
We used to have a lot.
3.5 acres.
Is it because there's not a demand for them?
No demand. I haven't sold them in the last 2-3 years.
What we've got left, we haven't sold yet.
And I really don't know what I'm going to do with them, as are most people in Riverland at the moment. They just don't know.
Well, how did the relationship with Maggie Beer come about?
Through the figs.
So I think we worked out we've been supplying Maggie Beer products for it's 24 years this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we probably should say, Dad and Mum did dried figs a long time ago, and then there was a change in the importation kind of systems into Australia. So there was a lot of cheaper imports come in to Australia, and that's when, as Dad said, we stopped drying fruit and increased like the fresh offering, and also that's when we started to supply, I think I'm right in saying that, Maggie Beer for manufacturing in terms of the figs and the quinces. But as conditions have changed in the Riverland because of because of fruit fly.
So how are you navigating the fruit fly?
Well, we don't sell anything fresh now in terms of figs. So anything that had to go into the Adelaide market, we can't sell fresh. We still sell the quinces into New South Wales because we can dispatch them without fumigation. So because we don't put any pesticides in any of our fruit. So the figs all get either processed for Maggie Beer products and Berenbergs now. We don't sell any fresh figs, unfortunately, because they're amazing. And then Dad's third biggest customer. Oh, no, there's a few smaller jam producers, but then third biggest customer is now Singing Magpie Produce. So
Is that right?
we sun dry a portion of the black and the white for our, value added kind of label, as opposed to it being a bigger commodity.
Isn't that wonderful?
I know. We never thought we would get there. I don't think Dad probably thought we would get there either.
So let me ask you, at what age did you, because you grew up here, right?
Yeah.
You grew up in Monash.
Yeah.
And right here on the property.
Yeah.
And then at what age did you leave? Let's talk about that, because you talk about Singing Magpie being, the a big customer.
It's the newest baby on the block, really, in the hindsight. I went to high school here in the Riverland, and as most people, like at that age that went to year 12, really in our minds as kids, we were like, how fast can we leave? And that was the reality. So lots of people go to uni or to TAFE or whatever. I went to uni and had a career in health. So very different to what it is now. Travelled the world, lived in Melbourne for 16 years. That's where I met Mark. That's where Frankie was born. And it was
Mark's your husband and Frankie's your daughter?
Yeah. And that's probably when Frankie was born. That's when I'd always had this burning, I always wanted to be here. Like, food was always in me, but I had this career in health, which I totally loved, but it was like this burning urge. And so, as you get older too, I think you realize you've just got to make these things happen. So when Frankie was born, things were just difficult in terms of commuting and childcare and in a big city and whatever. And I just remember Dad saying to me one day, he's like, just come home. And to quite honestly, it was probably about a month later, I just said to Mark, I think we need to get out. Like, we loved Melbourne. It was the best place ever. But once you have a child, it just changes your whole life. And the commute was just deadly, really. So you packed up? 6 months later, we'd packed up. We'd moved back. We rented the house out for, I think it was a year and a half, and then eventually we sold and bought here. So, and we've been here now for 10 years. This is our 10th year. So you met me in my very first year back. So I was working at RDA. I was doing commercial cookery and still trying to work out my place. I remember the first day back, we moved in January. It was like 21st, 22nd of January. And, neither of us had any jobs when we came back here. And I was in health prevention. There really wasn't any work for me here in that field. And I was very ready to change. And next day, Dad's like, well, you got to come and pick figs. So Mark worked on the orchard for 1 year, and I worked on the orchard and, did commercial cookery and then, a couple of days at RDA. And then that was kind of the opportunity to work out what I wanted to do in terms of food. So I knew by the end of that my place wasn't in a restaurant. I wasn't to be a cook.
Which was always your ambition.
Yeah, well, no,
you're an amazing cook.
But I mean, in that restaurant kind of environment, that wasn't my scene.
But you're always, what was the name of the, everywhere you went in Bloom?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just talking about that. So I did spend 2 years in Sri Lanka, and I was just saying to Tawnya that actually that was where I first created my first menu, and it was going to be for a restaurant called the Blue Mushroom. So, because we used to grow mushrooms. So,
what kind of mushrooms did you grow? Were they exotics or
standard mushrooms?
Swiss browns?
Yeah, whites and stuff. Yep. Underground in the set, like we had tunnels in the sandhill, because Dad's the innovator when it comes to that kind of growing and thinking outside of the square. So, my first restaurant was going to be called the Blue Mushroom. And, so I always had that in my mind. But, once I actually did commercial cookery, I was like, oh, okay, I want to do something with food, but I don't know if it's, being in a restaurant.
So what was that aha moment with your first product for Singing Magpie Produce? And how did the name come about?
Well, so Dad and Mum had both said to me, because, this is the thing with primary production, it's just so busy. At that stage, I think there was 40 tonne of figs, 20 tonne of quinces, it was probably 100 tonne of grapes back then. This is 10 years ago. Not even mentioning the pecans. So you're so busy that things like value adding and marketing and labels and packaging and social media, all of that is very difficult to manage that. Plus, when you've got crops like figs that aren't very robust, you just got to deal with them every day. So Dad had said, look, no one's really doing Australian dried figs. He said, I get asked all the time about dried figs and I just don't have time to do it. Just
because overseas it's been happening for thousands of years.
Yeah, I mean, we had done dried figs though, years before, but because the import taxes had changed, there'd been an influx of imported dried fruit that we couldn't compete with. So yeah, that would, it was probably about 40 years ago that happened. But because I came in and maybe with a different mindset, and I had a background in marketing when I worked at the Cancer Council, so I just used that year off. It wasn't really a year off; it was actually packed out. But to think about, okay, what could we sell? So we tested drying figs with sulfur and without. We just went down the path of no preservatives because we just felt like it didn't need it, and it was a standalone product, and no one else was doing that either. We sold them as semi-sun dried. My first batch was 50 kilos, and now we do about 2 tonne worth of dried figs on a good year. And we sold them on Facebook just to friends, over a couple of days. And I thought, okay, this is, there's put some potential here, and that's how it started. So the dried figs were the first products, the black and the white. And then the next product was the sun-dried quince, which was Mum's recipe, because everyone else does quince paste and varying levels of actual quince fruit in quince paste. Often it's a lot of fillers. So we wanted to be different. So we did the Smyrna sun-dried quince, which, won the champion award in that first year. And I didn't even know what a champion award was. It was Sydney Fine Foods, but that was Mum's original recipe.
Oh, and
so I probably jumped ahead there.
Oh, no, that's all right. That's I still remember that like that was yesterday because that's about the time we met.
Yes, that's right.
And entering
well,
the
because
Sydney
I think
Royal.
I went to the event not even knowing that it was.
No, didn't you get on the plane?
Yes. I went to Mildura. I jumped on the plane. I didn't, I just knew that there was gold, bronze, silver. I didn't know about anything else, and happened to end up sitting next to 2 olive producers who were always also going to Sydney Fine Foods. Now, that was a complete fluke.
Now, can I just say it's Sydney Royal Fine Food Competition.
Competition.
Yeah, and it's part of the Royal Agricultural Society for our listeners, and it's a competition that's once a year, and it really is the premier competition. It's a national competition.
So I'm sitting on the plane with these a couple, lovely people, and they said to me, well, we realised we were both going to the same event, which is, just bizarre. I think, that just happens. It was just meant to be. And they're like, I'm like, oh, well, I must have won a medal. Maybe I've won gold because they've invited me to come. And they're like, well, that's what they said. They said, well, have you been invited? I said, yes. He goes, oh, well, you haven't won gold. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you must have won a champion award. And I was like, well, I'm sitting in the seat as we're flying going, oh, what? I don't even know what a champion award is. So anyway, that was a very memorable night. But the head of judges then, I think it was, I was talking to her and she said, you need to talk to Tawnya Bahr. She's all about, regional producers and connecting with chefs. I didn't at that time even know what a food consultant was or what straight to the source was, but that's how we connected. And then at the time I was working a couple of days at RDA in the Riverland, and we managed to be able to get you to come do a famille with all of these producers across the Riverland and Marilands. And that's how it started 10 years ago.
That's it.
Yeah.
How fabulous to be sitting here today in Monash with both of you in the packing room. Started out with 2 products, the black and the white figs and then the sticky quince, the Smyrna semi-dried quince.
Yep. And then you lead into the sticky quince syrup because we couldn't waste anything, and we had this beautiful poaching liquid So, yeah, between us, we really nutted out, okay, we need to do something this. So we reduce it by about 7 hours, bring the bricks right up, get it really intense, and it's actually sweet but tart as well. So quite surprising for people. Almost on the burnt but not burnt, but if that makes sense. But that means it can go sweet or savoury, and it's just so – and it just means – we don't have any waste with the quinces. Like apart from maybe the skins we take off after they're cooked, just to keep the pectin levels right, and the seed on the inside, we scoop that out. But that, we probably do it a little bit differently to some people because we cook them in halves with the skin and the seeds in there deliberately so that the pectin levels are high. So.
Well, working on that project with you was an absolute pleasure. Traveling around Melbourne and exploring manufacturers.
I know, and nutting it all out. That's that product development, I think, that people don't realise it takes quite a long time to get a product to market. And then you've got to market it. So, and I think that is something for primary producers that they possibly don't know about, So there's one thing to have a vision about, okay, I'm going to grow pomegranates or whatever it is, but without knowing your end customer, I think sometimes that it can be a fault because you're not thinking about who you're going to sell this product to, and so you possibly would change the design of your product if you had that in mind. But not all primary producers think like that. At the end of the day, if you're going to survive, you still need to be able to sell your products. So you sort of had to have that multifaceted view of production.
Well, can you please walk us through your product range now?
Oh,
today?
Yeah, lucky I'm facing it, so I can actually talk you through. So our core products are, and I suppose what I should say is we use everything we can off of our orchard, and then we buy in products all from the Riverland though to supplements. So we've got a whole menu. So from our orchard, we have the black and white figs, semi-sun-dried figs. We have the Smyrna sun-dried quince. We have the sticky quince syrup. We have the figs marinated in the syrup. So that's the sticky quince figs, and they are marinated for about 6 months. So, they're just divine.
And again, they cross over sweet or savory.
Totally.
If you have duck and
cheese,
they make a beautiful sauce.
Yeah, I just really love that about the quince. And actually something about the quince when we did the Smyrna, the sun-dried. Initially, we did do it with cinnamon and there was another, I can't remember what it was now. Vanilla, I think, but we quickly, because most people, that's what they match them with, right? Most of the pastes. But actually, when you do that, you completely mask the quince because it's quite a delicate flavour, the quince. So if you add in those other powerful spices, you miss the quince taste altogether. So actually, we don't include any of them anymore. So it's just quince. It's beautiful. And I didn't realise that a lot of people actually are allergic to cinnamon. I didn't know that. So when you're looking at the packaging side and allergies, probably people don't even realise they are, but it actually has quite a high allergen risk with it. But that was just a side, but really we just wanted to be able to hero the quince, and so that's what we do with the quince products. But to keep going, then we have we don't grow this. Oh, sorry. And then our newest one, I should say, and a bit of a star right now is Dad's vine-ripened Shiraz. So, there's a glut in the Riverland. Well, there's a glut Australia-wide where the red grapes especially aren't being picked. So they're sitting they're ripening to the point of being almost dried on the vine. So this year we have kept some on the vine, and we've also picked some and sun-dried them to the end point. But they're just...
That's what I was eating yesterday.
That's what you're eating yesterday.
Delicious.
And it's like eating wine. The flavour is so intense. So we've been doing some dabbling with it for a couple of years, but this year we're going to create a label for it.
And I love the label. Do you know what the label is, Frank?
No.
Dad hasn't even. We've got a black and white label right now, but it's called Dad's vine-ripened Shiraz because that's exactly what it is. Like it's taken them right to the point where, you'd think, oh no, there's not a product there, but they are so delicious. And actually, I think today we're going to Producer's Lunch and they're using them on the menu. So for a sauce. So you can have them dried with your cheese or you can cook with them. So
well, the flavor is just so intense and the color is off the chart.
So beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So I think people get deterred because they've got a seed in them, a pip in them. But
really the flavor is also in the pip. If you chew the pip, most people are very, very reluctant to chew the pip, but that's...
Yeah, it really... Yeah, it's part of the experience,
finishes it off, yeah.
And then you get this texture. Anyway, I'm actually very excited about it. So we've got that Shiraz and then we buy in fresh mangoes. We've got citrus as well. We do supplement it with other people's citrus that we slice and dry.
But still telling that Riverland story.
Oh, it's all Riverland. We don't buy anyone else's except for the Riverland in terms of what we buy in. Most people don't realise that in the Riverland there is a beautiful mango orchard in Renmark, Kensington Pride mangoes, and they sit on the tree for a very long time, longer than what you might get in the eastern states. And because
no cold storage?
No cold storage, no. I get them straight. I get the seconds actually, so straight as they're picked, and the flavour, because they've sat on those trees for longer, is phenomenal. So we hand cut them, so it is laborious. Hand cut them because of the big nut inside. Dry them. No, nothing else. And the flavour, I mean, you saw yesterday everyone went straight for the mango. There was no mango left. It's just out of this world. So mangoes, we're doing persimmons right now as well. And then we buy in peaches, pears, apricots and jubes. So you met Setchels yesterday, Black Sheep Produce. We buy in their jubes for our gift boxes. So we have these phenomenal artisan gift boxes, which is like a rainbow of produce from the Riverland. And that's our intention, to tell a story. And I'm very excited because when we're about to go to Sri Lanka, but when we get back, it's medjool date season, dried medjool dates. So we're getting some medjool dates from Gurra Down, so they will be in our gift boxes as well for the next few months until we run out. But
so let's just talk about jujubes because our listeners might not know what jujubes are, and they are a Chinese red date.
Yes.
And when they're fresh, they're almost like a tiny little apple.
They're so crisp. Yes, they're beautiful.
When they're dried,
so Heidi and Dave dry them in Loxton. They grow them there, and they're like this crinkled up, I don't know, dark brown, reddy brown. And they have a pip in them as well, but
high in antioxidants. Yeah,
they are the colour a bit of a Kongdong, and Kongdong.
Yeah,
you might have to edit that.
But they're so nutritious, though. They are so good for you. So I mean, I'm thinking, people have traditionally used them to make these, teas that you seep and drink all day, but even just fresh. Like we, as a team, we have 2 a day. Like that's what Dave and Heidi said, like they're just so good for you. So between them and the figs, our fibre levels are very good.
Yes. I think a point that I'd like to make though is your offering it's premium.
Yeah. We also produce what we call is our spectacular diced dried fruit mix, deliberately with no sultanas in it because most other dried fruit mix has got sultanas and whatever, currants and stuff in. So we just want to offer a different point of view. But no one else does a diced dried mix that has got in it black and white figs, peaches, pears, apricots, candied lemon. So we don't even waste the lemon that is used to cook with the quince. All of that gets reused into our diced fruit mix, and it's phenomenal. And now we make Christmas cakes. So when I come back in July, we'll be making Christmas cakes for Christmas. And last year we sold 250 Christmas cakes, and it's just thinking outside of the box about how you continually create beautiful products that people can't get anywhere else. And I just feel so lucky because the Riverland has such a menu of offering in terms of fruit. I don't have to look anywhere else. It's all here. Just need to think about, okay, what can we create that is different from what other people do? Because you've got to find your niche, you've got to find your little gap in the market because there's a lot out there. So
So for the last 10 years, oh, sorry, Frank.
I was going to say the other product was almonds, which is very big in Riverland.
Oh, yeah. So in our gift boxes, we use Almond Co. almonds. So just adds that fruit and nut aspect. And we haven't even talked about chocolate. So we do, and we invariably at Christmas time, we'll do some kind of, Christmassy little offering, and it will have almonds and dried fruit in it usually. And you've connected me with Solomon Gold, so we use Solomon Gold vegan chocolate, and that's just been lovely. So we managed to get this chocolate here from Sydney in the middle of summer, but arrives safely, and we hand temper all of it, and yeah, it's lovely.
Isn't it wonderful having those collaborations?
Yeah,
and I mean,
it just makes it so much more special, and also it just. The story behind those beans, and that's been a lovely thing to be able to cultivate.
What advice would you give? I mean, you've been running now Singing Magpie 10 years this year.
Oh, next year's 10 years.
Next year's 10 years.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We've been here for 10 years, but we started Singing Magpie a year after. So, so next year's our 10-year anniversary.
And you've navigated a lot. You're raising your beautiful girl, and you've adjusted to obviously living back in the country.
I had breast cancer in there. It was before I think I'd only just started to employ someone. So we were doing, Mum and I were sort of doing ourselves. And then I remember we had lots of Christmas orders. And so my friend Nay, who is a beekeeper, she does lots of things, but she is a beekeeper. And I said, can you come help us pack? And then I found out, just as after I turned 50, found out that I had breast cancer. So it was such a relief that Nay was helping us already. And then that's when Tina started as well. So it was funny. Breast cancer, I mean, obviously cancer's confronting, but it actually made me as a business owner go, well, I have to obviously step back. I had 5 months of chemo, and it gives you a different perspective. Or I was forced to look into the business rather than working on the business rather than in the business. So here I'm thinking that we might ramp down, but we actually ended up ramping up. So, there's some good insights to having kind of those life experiences, because it makes you view the world in a different way. So it's definitely, obviously cancer shapes everyone, I think, but it's really it's helped me be able to step out and think about the business as a business rather than, packing every day, for example, just those systems and that innovation. I think as a founder, you need to be able to create that time for yourself. You can't always be doing, otherwise that creativity doesn't come to the fore, really.
And do you think if you weren't forced to, that you would have?
I think I would have taken longer to employ more people, because, you always think, I can't afford it. Salaries are expensive. But actually having Tina and, of course, they're phenomenal. They were phenomenal and they still are at what they do. But, I probably would have waited another year before I put another person on, and that's a year lost in terms of creativity and also looking after myself. I needed to step back and, I think as a founder, or any business owners can get caught up, especially when you have harvest, and that kind of seasonal produce that your health might come second, but actually you can't, because if you're sick, you can't do anything. So it does make you rethink that whole kind of perspective of how we're going to run this business to last. And that means looking after yourself first, really.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because breast cancer is everywhere.
Yes.
And
so prevalent.
It is so prevalent. And we've started we haven't. Naomi Lowry is a chef that we recently
I just started to listen to her podcast, actually.
Yes. And, check your boobies.
Yeah.
Check your boobs. And, yes, the first of every month, and just make that a routine.
Yeah. And I remember you actually interviewed me. I think this is the first iteration of your podcast. I think I was second on there, and was that maybe 2022, and I just finished, or a year out, I think. So, it's a good, I just can't believe that was, however long, 6 years ago now. So, it's gone so quickly, to be honest. Thank goodness, really. To be clear and safe and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, well,
but it does give you a different perspective on life. You realize life is actually, every day is a privilege. And so I don't know. I think that just revs you up. It revs me up anyway to go, right, well,
Motivating.
We're lucky to be here. So what else can I create today?
Yeah.
That's really how I think some days, to be honest. Not always, but especially this time, once harvest is finished, harvest is hot and hard and it's, groundhog kind of days. But now for the rest of the year in the Riverland, this is beautiful,
Oh. Well, Frank, how does that make you feel sitting there looking at your beautiful daughter and, what she's keeping the legacy going, same but different?
No, it's very good. Yeah, it is to look over the fence and see how she can improve what she's selling and developing. Some of the questions she comes up with, you just shake your head.
He's like, where are you going with that? I'm like, I don't know yet, but we'll get somewhere. But it is very much, I think it is very much a team. So, Dad, my brother, my mum, Rob, they're very much have to focus on the growing. And I think that's the privilege that I have with Singing Magpies. I can help with that. But having sort of almost like two teams, you really need that because value adding is quite different to primary production. So I might be just helping them pick, but then I'm thinking about creation in a different way. And if it's just say a husband and wife team, that's very hard to be able to pivot, between both of those jobs. You need the headspace to be able to do both well. So I feel very lucky that, effectively there is really two teams and we just are intermingled. I mean, obviously as a family, but it allows me the freedom to think differently to what Dad would do for what he needs to, his contracts and where his fruit goes.
The other thing is probably looking to the future. You're trying to picture where the future is going to go.
What's the vision?
What are you thinking, Frank? What is your prediction?
Very hard, very hard.
I think because
whether Sue can handle a whole lot, or whether we have to bring another sibling in or something like that. And then I've got to remember other siblings.
So there is three of us, yes.
We have to, and their children, have to be entitled to have a look into the system too. So, there is no clear answer out there. And a lot of people say, oh, you should go and see so-and-so or, let the accountant sort that out. Well, if I haven't worked it out in 60 years of being on the block, I don't think an accountant that's been there 20 years is going to do it. So I tend to be a bit resistant to that sort of thing. Doesn't mean to say you don't listen to them, but quite often their life experiences don't come through in what they are putting up to you. Maybe they've learned it within the system. Sure, you might get a gem out of one of them every now and then, but I was fortunate enough to be 10 years as a director on the pack and shed board, so I had the ability to see the other side as well. So
you kind of have to tiptoe through it all, don't you? It's a bit hard to know. Sometimes doors open when you least expect it. Do you know what I mean? Exactly. It's hard to vision, I think, and then opportunities come along, whether they're forced, with the grapes just now, it's like, well, what's going to happen and is there something else we could do? It's that kind of, sometimes you're forced into a position to make a decision and sometimes doors open unexpectedly. So it's very hard to predict, I reckon.
Yes, absolutely. Well, how wonderful, though, for you guys to have this father-daughter. And your mom is in the mix. I know she's not in the
and my brother.
And your brother.
And they just don't like to always be at the forefront.
Well,
I was lucky enough to get Mum there yesterday to take some photos for our event yesterday. But,
And the event, I will say for our listeners, because they probably won't know, it was for Tasting Australia.
Yes.
And it was a collaboration with Temperance Restaurant, which
Hotel
we're heading to.
Yeah, Hotel Remark. And us on our orchard in the quinces. And, it's the end of May here and you don't expect rain. Well, actually, rarely do we expect rain in the Riverland, to be totally honest. We're mostly in drought.
I think I brought it with me.
I know. So Friday and Saturday, I think we just worked out we had about 65 or 68 millimetres of rain, which is absolutely unheard of, and we're hosting an event for 50, 60 people in the orchard yesterday. Anyway, thank goodness we had organised a marquee for Friday, got it up before it was wet, and it was beautiful. Like just the rain on the marquee was beautiful.
Just sounded
and the sunset,
beautiful.
The
Yes.
sunset was amazing.
Nature took care of us, and it was absolutely magical.
It was.
So
well done to Tasting Australia for providing that kind of platform for us to think out of the box. So last year they flew in people to we were part of a whole Riverland entourage. But this year we thought, let's try that again on our own. And we probably wouldn't have done that without the experience of Tasting Australia the year before. And just they offer a platform because people are coming into South Australia for events. So we just try and get them 3 hours from Adelaide to come and visit us. And we did. I mean, we had, I think, 2/3 Riverland people, 1/3 people coming from Mildura, Inverloch, all the way from Inverloch. I know there was Mount Gambier and then some people from Adelaide. So, yeah, it was magical yesterday. Yeah.
it was wonderful.
And you did a great job, our Q&A. I know.
thank
That
you.
was so lovely.
Thank you.
So-
It's wonderful to be back here, and it's wonderful to spend time with you and your family. And as we wrap up the podcast, is there any closing comments you'd like to say, Frank?
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Well, I mean, just leaning on from that, like I feel like I've said to you many times that I didn't even know what a food consultant was when we first met, and I just feel like the opportunity that the platform that Straight to the Source provides producers for us to connect with chefs that we wouldn't never even know, and then out of that becomes it might be a food service product. Or it's the product development we do with your head about, okay, what do people want to eat and what kind of flavours are we melding here? Like, I just feel that, that's a real privilege to be working with Straight to Source for, 10 years now. Yeah. We're going to have to do a post on that.
I know. Let's get busy on that. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And, yes, and ... will to be continued.
Yeah.
All right.
Hope
Thank
to
you
see you
so
in 10
much.
years.
We can go run around the orchard.
On the buggy
Kevin.
again, yeah.
That's it.
You
I'm
better
in.
make that 5 then.
You're on. You're on. Okay.
Thanks for listening in. We really hope you enjoyed the conversation.
We would be keen to hear from you if you have a story to share or a topic that we should dive into.
Drop us a line. We always love hearing from you.